week on Quality Digest Live, we're celebrating World Metrology Day with a look at the science of measurement.
Plus, how to pass an FDA quality system audit. That and more when we come back. Welcome back to Quality Digest Live for May 20th, 2016. World Metrology Day is today. Yes,
That's right.
May 20th. More on that in a few moments. QDL, of course, is your weekly look at who and what is making the news in the world of quality. I'm Mike Richmond, publisher of Quality Digest.
And I'm Quality Digest Editor-in-Chief, Dirk Ducharme. Well, this month, or maybe it was last month, or maybe it's June or perhaps August.
It's one of these months.
One of these months is National Inventors Month. Nobody
right.
can quite agree when it is, but it is right around now.
Sure.
This is a month when we celebrate all the brilliant minds who have brought us the Vegematic, the Pet Rock, Snuggies, and of course the Flowbee. You remember the Flowbee, don't you? You remember the Flowbee?
Oh, yeah.
the hair sucker cutter.
This is a Flowbee cut right here.
Yeah, there it is. That's the Flowbee right there.
See, my hair looks just like that guy's.
Well, and from what I understand, it actually gave pretty good haircuts. I mean, this guy seems happy.
Sure.
Yeah. And they even use it on pets with kind of mixed results.
Hey, that's my cat.
There you go. Well, fortunately, someone in the United States is making sure that we aren't the laughing stock of the world.
Really?
Well, at least when it comes to inventions. Politics is something else. But one of the most successful inventors to work for the U.S. government is a man by the name of Jacob Ramaley, who worked at NIST from 1938 to 1989. Of course, at that time, it wasn't called NIST.
61 years. Is that right?
Yeah.
60, wow.
51 years. There we go.
Still a lot of years.
And also remember, at that time it wasn't called NIST, it was called the National Bureau of Standards.
Right.
He racked up more than 230 U.S. and 70 foreign patents, and among his inventions, this is pretty interesting stuff, a mechanism for the automatic regulation of clocks and watches, which actually wasn't anything that made him any money. Right. Automatic letter sorting machine for the U.S. Post Office, that was Ramaley. Magnetic particle clutch, which is used today in sometimes in automobiles, airplanes, servo mechanisms, and other machines. The world's first magnetic disk memory. So when you're using a hard drive,
that's him.
Ramaley, back in the 50s. Except it was huge. If you look at the first hard drive, it was like a 1 meg hard drive or something. It was the size of a truck.
Oh gosh.
The straight line phonograph.
Okay.
Does that sound strange to you?
It doesn't sound like that would be a very useful invention.
See,
but
that was my thought. I'm picturing a football long yard thing that you put on in your like single groove. No, actually, this is very, very clever. He also didn't make any money on this one.
Imagine that.
A regular phonograph has a tone arm that pivots.
Right.
Right. And so it starts off tangential to the grooves, which is what you want, but as it gets further and further in, it isn't tangential, and that introduces distortion. So he had a mechanism for tracking the tone arm linearly, so it always stayed in tangent to the grooves.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Also didn't make any money.
But a great idea.
This man did actually make money in a lot of his inventions, just some of those weren't those. He had an interesting quote. He said, "Invention is an art form. It is no more logical than composing music or writing poetry," which I thought is really interesting. I mean, it's smarts and it's knowledge, but it's also inspiration and working around the edges. You know,
that isn't what Edison said, though. Edison, wasn't he famously saying 99% perspiration and 1% inspiration on his inventions?
Yeah, but I'm not sure Edison did all his own inventions, so I'm not sure that really.
And Edison,
seriously,
he wasn't a success at all. So what does he know? I mean, in terms of being an inventor. So
darn
wait
DC electricity.
But wait a minute, I got to get back to this now. So the controversy about the months, what is that whole deal about?
Well, if you go and look up, if you go and try to look up National Inventors Month,
right.
The consensus seems to be it's somewhere around May, but there's some people who say it's in April. There's some who say it's in June. There's one outlier that says National Inventors Month is August. I have no idea when it is. Well, I think on the official, you can
Well, what does NIST
register.
say? Doesn't NIST have an opinion on this? No? I mean,
Well, that's the one company I forgot to look at.
there you go. Well, you
Why
know,
didn't I do that?
if NIST, if you're listening, I know you are. If anybody at NIST is listening, get on that because we need to know when
We need to know when National Inventors Month
really is. Okay, thank you, Dirk. All right, well, we're having some fun, as you can tell, with technology on the show today, and for good reason. As mentioned earlier, May 20th is World Metrology Day.
And that is actually
That
May
is actually
20th.
it. That is it, because I'm going to tell you in a moment exactly why that is. World Metrology Day is today, and it offers us an opportunity to celebrate the science of measurement, not to mention the often underappreciated metrologists that do the test and measurement to make metrology work. This particular day is acknowledged because it was on May 20th in 1875 that representatives of 17 nations signed the Treaty of the Meter, also known as the Meter Convention. This helped coordinate the science of metrology and paved the way for the development of the International Metric System. Well, today, metrology touches on pretty much every part of the developed world, and modern manufacturing and modern assembly in particular would be really pretty much impossible without the hardware and the software and the peripheral equipment that makes micron-level accuracies feasible. Here at Quality Digest, we're proud to cover metrology on a regular basis as the media partner for the Coordinate Metrology Society, the good folks who host the CMSC event each summer. In fact, Dirk and I are going to be on hand at CMSC 2016 in July this year in the Nashville, Tennessee area. Well, it's in this light that we welcome our first guest to today's show for this month's CMSC Corner. Michael Raphael is president and CEO of Direct Dimensions, a company providing unique solutions to complex modeling and manufacturing problems, specializing in the on-site application of digitizers, laser scanners, and much more. He's also spent several years on the executive committee of the Coordinate Metrology Society. So, Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Dirk.
Yeah, thanks for being here with us today. Well, metrology industry, it's really interesting in terms of its history and its ever-evolving tools and its various applications. So, how would you summarize the importance of metrology maybe for someone learning about it for the first time?
Great question. Thank you. So metrology, of course, is the science of measurement. With the CMS, Coordinate Metrology Society, and the work that we've done at Direct Dimensions and many other folks around the world, especially in the U.S., our efforts are primarily focused on dimensional quality. So measuring things, measuring parts dimensionally, and confirming their accuracies, their manufacture and tolerances, things like this are the specialization that we get involved in within the broader framework of the entire concept of metrology. So the CMS and groups like that, there's others that are forming, as a matter of fact, that have formed over the years, and there's even some in Europe and Asia, are specifically looking at technologies and that measure things dimensionally, things like airplanes and power generation equipment, architecture, roads, bridges, things like this. As it relates to learning and maybe looking into this technology, coming into schools and programs for that, the first place I would look, of course, would be the CMS website. There's a host of information about this. Schools are adding programs and have over the years added programs around dimensional metrology, using technology, using computer-based tools to measure the lengths and widths and tolerances of things. It sounds simple. It isn't. Making airplanes fly, making windmills spin, things like this. It's pretty difficult, actually, to do these things accurately, and that's what the world of dimensional metrology that we focus on is all about.
Well, Michael, you kind of touched on something there. A lot of people, when they think of 3D or coordinate metrology, they think of it in terms of manufacturing and assembly, and very often in terms of large-scale manufacturing and assembly, so very industrial applications. But it also has some more subtle uses that really touch people's lives. Can you explain about that a little bit?
Sure. And you may be even seeing some of these, hopefully, behind me. We're showcasing some imagery of things that we've worked on, projects that we've worked on over the years with our 3D coordinate metrology tools. And you're seeing some that include art and sculpture. You're seeing architecture and buildings and historic preservation applications that we work with. So, fundamentally, the concept of measuring things includes the idea of documenting, whether it's large structures, airplanes, for example, or buildings in the case of historic preservation, or sites. Also small things in the case of small manufactured items for a car or an airplane, but it could also be a cultural artifact something that's in a museum or something that somebody finds very precious to them. These same tools, these laser scanners and optical metrology tools are often applied to fields beyond manufacturing, as you're pointing out, for these types of documenting projects or even reproductions. To put one a case study that's a little bit more poignant in terms of changing people's lives, we work regularly, and you may see a slide or two show up, with the idea of scanning people for the idea of making cosmetically accurate, for example, facial prosthetics. So we use the same coordinate metrology tools that we might use for measuring an airplane part, but we might be measuring someone's ear because they may have lost their other ear. We can scan their existing ear. We can mirror it in the computer, physically bring it out of the computer using technologies like 3D printing, and we can literally make someone a new ear that's exactly equal to the opposite ear. And this does change people's lives. There's no doubt about it. We work with institutions like Johns Hopkins Hospital here in Baltimore, where we're located. We work with Walter Reed and soldiers that have come back from war zones and have been afflicted by these types of conditions. And I can tell you it's a very rewarding aspect of the work that we do.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and as you move forward, I mean, do you see that obviously that's going to continue to improve and improve people's lives as you go forward? I mean, what is the kind of the bleeding edge of that moving forward? I mean, how far do you think we can take these prosthetics and this ability to scan and accurately, basically bring in parts of people's bodies into their body and make them function? I mean, how far can we take it?
It really is growing, Mike. It really is. I mean, the prosthetics in the medical community are really just starting to explore this. We've been doing it a very long time, over 15, close to 20 years, with certain institutions, but it is starting to catch fire. The idea of 3D printing is definitely catching on, as we've seen. There's been many projects that have been focused in the news using simple desktop printers to make replacement hands that function, for example, for children. Because they grow so fast, the idea of making an expensive, say, $50,000 conventional prosthetic can be almost out of the question. So using literally a $50 worth of material, these organizations around the country, and we've printed hundreds of these for kids. You can literally change someone's life with something like that. Now, you can extend this to far more other, manufacturing and industrial applications. There's no question these types of technologies are moving in that. We're working with surgeons, we're working with doctors to take CT data from craniofacial patients and making aerospace level tooling to be used in surgery to help doctors cut as a cutting guide, help them in their surgical process, plan the surgeries digitally and virtually, visualize the surgeries, produce the surgeries in some cases using these surgical guides, and in many cases now we're moving into the idea of implantables that are used this technology through 3D printing. It really is changing lives, but there are other applications. Let me go this way. We use the same technology that we really perfected to do these types of medical applications. Today we're using them for Hollywood, for scanning actors and props and sets and locations, because so many of our big budgets, movies have tremendous special effects. So the idea of scanning and digitizing, or essentially coordinate metrology of actors and these types of things, and putting them into the computer very accurately. So then when we watch these movies, they look precisely like the items that we've scanned. This is interesting. Obviously, from a historic preservation perspective, we like to maintain a level of precision and accuracy for these types of sites too. We scanned Mount Vernon in Washington, D.C., outside of Washington, George Washington's house, for example, every aspect of it, and many other things like that, including the Liberty Bell, the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier, the Iwo Jima Memorial, and many other things. And some of those slides you may even see behind me at times.
Well, as I mentioned in your intro, and you've devoted a lot of time and a lot of energy to the Coordinate Metrology Society, including multiple terms on its executive committee. So how do you see the evolution of the society and some of its exciting new developments, things like the certification program that is rolling out now, or the Precision Path Consortium?
Right, these are fabulous programs, and my hope is that the committee is able to spend more time working on these types of things. The CMS has been around over 30 years. It's a fabulous, longstanding group of individuals that volunteer their time year after year to put on essentially a conference, and usually in the summertime. This year will be coming up in July in Nashville, Tennessee. Brings together individuals, vendors, exhibitors, professionals, academics as well, from all over the world to come together every year for a week to talk about the idea of coordinate metrology, the idea of using these tools for really important applications within aerospace and automotive and power generation and many other critical applications. So the committee, the CMS committee, that is, essentially volunteers year after year. They put their time and effort into putting this conference together. It's really a tremendous effort. As you mentioned, I was part of that for over 4 years. My efforts were regarding the conference as it relates to the technical presentations, which is really something that can't be missed. There's unparalleled technical content presented at the CMSC each year in terms of how to use these types of tools, what are the applications, accuracy tests, all kinds of issues and things that people can present, to come together to speak about these topics, that share the knowledge across the planet as widely as possible to grow the fields. You mentioned the Precision Path. This is a fabulous group of brand new, relatively new within the last year, bringing essentially a consortium of people pulling together their time and effort under a grant that they received to push out the concept of large-scale metrology in a broader way. This is fabulous. There are a number, I don't know if most people are aware of this, but there are a number of initiatives around the idea of innovation institutes that have been formed. One in particular, two in particular that probably connect with us directly. One is more on 3D printing side of things, called America Makes, which is all of these are President Obama's innovation institutes that fall under NIST management. Another one is called DMDII, which is out of Chicago. It's about a year, maybe 2 years old. Also a very strong innovation institute around the idea of advanced manufacturing. Clearly with computers coming on in the last 25 years, and hitting the metrology space as we know it, as it has so deeply, these tools are becoming computerized in such a way that it's there's so much more they can do to affect the quality of manufacturing. So having a organization such as DMDII, as well as America Makes, and now Precision Path, which is just starting a fledgling effort. This is the type of system that produces new things that share widely across the planet. The ideas, in our case, of dimensional metrology. So we're very excited about that.
Well, thanks, Michael. Thanks, Michael, for kind of giving us an update on Precision Path and some of the other programs that are related that are really helping to strengthen American manufacturing and how all that ties into metrology.
And World Metrology Day.
And World Metrology Day. So thanks, Michael, for joining us this morning. It's Michael Raphael, President and CEO of Direct Dimensions. I have that right, Direct Dimensions, right?
Correct.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. Make sure I got the company name right there. Didn't want to mess that up. Michael, thanks for joining us, and we'll be seeing you in CMSC in just a couple months.
Very good. Thank you very much, folks.
Okay,
enjoy World Metrology Day.
That's right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Michael.
Measure on.
We'll see you then. That's right. Yeah, good show. We'll be down there in a couple of months, like you say. All right. Well, When Chemistry Meets Marketing is the title of an article by our very own editorial director, Taryn March. You can see it right there. It ran in Tuesday's issue of Quality Digest Daily. Well, what's in a name is a question that's plagued romantics and marketers, which are by no means mutually exclusive groups, at least since the days of Shakespeare. In this article, Taryn examines the naming conventions of branded pharmaceuticals and discovers that there's a lot that goes into picking a name for the new products that are constantly being brought to market in this industry. And it's a complicated endeavor. It's one that deals heavily with psychology and subliminal messaging. For example, hard sounds like Z or X often are used to connote the power of cutting-edge science to quickly end symptoms of things like anxiety in the case of Xanax, or acid reflux in the case of Zantac, right? Softer, more relaxed sounding letters like S's are many times used for drugs marketed to women like Seraphim, which is used to treat symptoms of PMS. some drugs that help regulate heart rhythms, such as beta blockers like atenolol and nadolol, end in those all syllables, which really mimic the double beat of a heart. And then there's Viagra, which rhymes with Niagara, or sometimes this game, I guess, really isn't all that subtle or subliminal at all, I guess. Well,
there we go.
From my perspective, as someone who deals regularly with marketing and brand positioning, I think that coming up with the right name or the right title, the right description for something is actually a major part of success. I do that. Quality means conforming to customer requirements and helping to create and launch products that serve customers' needs, which are stated or unstated needs, is really a major part of the quality function. My key takeaway from this article of Taryn's is that names are important and they convey meaningful bits of information that really do speak to customers. I mean, just imagine if Steve Jobs had created an e-phone. This seems wrong, don't you think? It doesn't sound right. You know, I mean, or how would you like to have been the poor soul who had to product test preparation G, right? I mean, sounds scary. I mean, you know, in the modern light, but I think we all can agree that product innovation in any sector is important, and those brand names that are chosen can actually make or break a launch. So if you're contemplating bringing a sleep aid named Nightmara to market, you might just want to go back to the drawing board.
Preparation I.
Well, you know, that would be the next generation, which would probably be really good. I would imagine Preparation G was probably a rough go for that poor guy who had to test market that. I mean, imagine being the tester for Preparation G.
It's like, oh darn it, missed by one letter. Okay, well, speaking of pharmaceuticals and FDA regulated industries, perhaps you are in a regulated industry, meaning that you manufacture products related to food or drugs or medical devices and the like, or perhaps you are certified to ISO 13485 2016. The question comes up, are you doing everything you need to be doing according to the FDA when it comes to handling product complaints? What is a product complaint anyway? Are companies perhaps over-reporting or perhaps under-reporting complaints to the FDA? Well, our next guest is an expert on FDA complaint handling. Grant Ramaley is Director of Regulatory Affairs for Aseptico Incorporated, co-chairman of the Regulatory Affairs and Standards Committee for the Dental Trade Alliance, convener for the ISO 13485 Working Group at the International Accreditation Forum, and technical committee advisor to the Asian Harmonization Working Party. In other words, he's a pretty smart guy when it comes to working with the FDA. Good morning, Grant.
Good morning, Dirk.
All right, well, in your article, Passing FDA Quality System Inspection, you write, quote, the FDA has said that ISO 13485 covers about 90% or more of its quality system requirements. How nice. But what about the other 10%? Many manufacturers are surprised when an FDA investigator asks questions about other parts in the federal regulation that don't align with ISO 13485. So my question is, can you give us a couple of examples of that missing 10% in 13485 that might catch companies off guard when the FDA comes around?
Yeah, Dirk, and I think one of the things that catches most people off guard that have an ISO certification is there's much more of a quality focus, whereas when an FDA inspection occurs, the investigators are much more focused on public health. They go right for a complaint file. And of course, there's feedback systems in 13485, and they're much more aligned now than ever before with the FDA requirements. But there's really a cultural shift in the audit with an FDA inspection. I mean, many of the FDA investigators don't have a 13485 background. They have their training on the quality system on Part 820, which fortunately is 90% aligned with it. So if you have a 13485 system, you're in pretty good shape. But they spend a lot of time looking at the complaint file. They want to see that the procedures reflect the FDA's focus on public health protection. They're going to be looking a lot more at those parts of the regulation that address medical device reporting, corrections and removals of product to prevent a public health risk. And so Part 803 and Part 806 are a couple of the outlier parts of the federal regulation that get a lot of attention during an FDA inspection. And it's really important for the company to demonstrate to the FDA that there's a culture that they can rely on there that has a common interest in protecting the public health, not just have a quality system.
So Grant, when it comes to the FDA and complaints, quote unquote, there seems to be some confusion. Not every complaint is a complaint in terms of what the FDA is looking for. So can you explain what the FDA really is looking for?
Well, certainly, and it really comes down to this. I mean, if a company is collecting thousands of reports of a device not working because they have a service department that repairs them, they can probably figure that most of those are going to be not complaints. They're going to be something that just needs a repair of that one device. The customer may be pounding his fist on the table and saying, I want a warranty repair. This thing, shouldn't have gone out. But in fact, the device is 10 years. There are complaints like that the complaint unit that I refer to in the article is the designated group within a medical device company that would handle evaluation of those types of incidences or complaints. Goes in and they're going to look, is this guy really have a complaint against the product in general, or is this really just a routine repair and he's trying to get a free warranty repair? And so there is some gray area in there. I think a lot of companies tend to want to take some precautions and they want to throw all those repairs into the category of being a complaint. But the FDA really isn't looking at routine repairs as complaints. And that's made even more clear in a document that they have available for people to look at called the preamble, where there's and those sorts of complaints that are made against individual products, those will be collected and they'll feed back into the corrective and preventive action system through trending, and improvements will be made that way.
Hey, Graham, I mean, if I can just jump in then, I mean, how does a company make that distinction? I mean, you said there's a gray area, so I mean, how does a company in their own minds understand whether this is something they should report or not?
Well, to put it simply, if they're attacking the model number, so if they're making a suggestion that says, these devices you have on the market don't work because mine didn't this way. If you get, if they're not working the way that they're supposed to, one of the statements is that the device should perform as intended. If you look at the definition in 820.198-3, it's in the article. So, it's alleging a deficiency with the product. And the company is also going to be aware of certain things that just shouldn't happen. I mean, we design devices to work, within their warranty period. So if they fail, upon arrival, obviously that would be something that would be a complaint. So there's a couple of different ways that you can approach looking at a complaint. One is the customer is attacking the product model number, and the other is open this thing up and it didn't work. I've only had it a week and it broke down and I haven't done anything wrong with it. Well, the manufacturer is going to obviously look at that as there being something wrong with the device. It may be just that unit, and they'll have to look at that during the investigation process and find out whether it was just a one-off mistake or if there was a design flaw that could have affected,
Yeah, that was going to be my next question is even if the complaint is about a particular device, I suppose the company itself, if they're tracking all their complaints, they might say, wow, we continue to get complaints on this particular part. Maybe it isn't a one-off, maybe there is, like you said, a design problem. And in that case, would they have to report that to the FDA?
Well, reporting is a whole nother section of the regulation, and it has to do with the severity of the risk to public health. Complaints come in and they're evaluated for reportability. So you want to find out right away, yes, it didn't work right out of the box, but was the kind of failure going to create a public health risk, or is it something that we're going to be looking at from the standpoint of, we've got a quality problem? You don't need to report quality problems that are minor issues with the product. You need to work toward fixing them. It doesn't mean that a device with a minor defect in it, from a standpoint of, a clipped wire doesn't allow a battery to work very well. Well, on a defibrillator, of course, that would be a reportable incident because you're trying to save lives every time you use a defibrillator. So you have to look at the device, you have to look at the consequences of the failure that's being reported to you by the customer and put it in the context of how severe it is before you can determine whether you're going to report it.
Okay. And I'm going to have to cut you off there, Grant, but hopefully this was a good teaser for those of you who are involved in FDA-regulated industries. If complaint handling is a question for you and you're wondering, I want to hear more about what Grant has to say about how I determine, what types of complaints and how they should be reported to the FDA and when they have to be reported. Is it 5 days? Is it 30 days? I'm so confused. Then you want to watch the webinar, Understanding the FDA's Inspection of Parts 820, 803, and 806 as they relate to handling complaints. That webinar, Grant will be the expert on that webinar. That will be Tuesday, May 24th, that's next Tuesday, at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific. And again, if you are involved in an FDA-regulated industry, you're going to want to watch this webinar and find out how to handle complaints. If you are interested, if you click on the link to Grant's article underneath the player page there, that'll take you out to his article. That's very good reading. There's some really good information in there. And in that article, there's also a link out to the registration page. So be sure to click that. If you're an FDA-regulated industry, this is a webinar for you.
Yep.
Grant, thanks for joining us this morning. Appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule.
All right. Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, no problem. And we'll see you next Tuesday.
See you on the webinar next Tuesday.
Thanks, Grant.
Thanks, Grant. Yes, and you also can all keep an eye on your email. As you all know, I think that we email regularly leading up to these webinars that they're coming up. So be sure to check that out. You'll be seeing in your email coming up soon.
Well,
that's our show for this World Metrology Day, May 20th.
That's
2016,
right.
Great
Inventors Month,
show.
maybe?
That's right, thank you. Maybe Inventors Month, maybe we don't know. Thank you all for being there. Thank you again, Grant, for being there. Michael Raphael of Direct Dimensions and CMSC for joining us as well. And again, be sure to check out the webinars coming up next Tuesday, a few days from now on May 24th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 11 a.m. Pacific. And you can check that out again. You can register for it in Grant's article right below there, or you can keep an eye on your email and register for it that way.
There we go.
Yeah, you guys all have a great weekend. We'll see you back here on Monday for another big week at QDD, the webinar on Tuesday, and of course we'll be back on Friday with another episode of QDL.
So long.
We'll see you then.